What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Norman Murray. Welcome to another episode of the Building Bridges podcast. For my regular listeners, I appreciate you and your support so much. And to those first timers, welcome to the podcast. All right, let's build a bridge. Today's episode is titled Beauty Within Pain. And I stole that title from the author and guest that we have today. Many of you know most of my audio podcasts are solo, but every so often I'm blessed with some really great people. Today is no exception, and I am excited, to have with me Miss Kristle Baylor-Johnson. She is an entrepreneur and owner of Dew's Blossom Garden, and now proud to say a published author.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. That's that applause. Yeah, absolutely. And the title of her book is The Beauty Within Pain. Yeah. All right. And so let me introduce you, Kristle. Come on and talk to the people.
Thank you for having me, Norman. I appreciate it. The warm welcome and following me through. So yes, everyone, I'm here. The owner of Dew's Blossom Garden and the first-time writer of The Beauty Within Pain.
Awesome. You know, the goal, as always, even in the video podcast that I do, the goal is always to help somebody out there, to always give an encouraging word. And for those of you that may not know, one of the mantras of Building Bridges is to motivate you, to inspire you, and to provoke you in thought. And today we are going to do just that with some of the words and some of the conversation with speaking to Miss Kristle here. And I'm just going to jump right in, right? So there's so many ways that a person can look at beauty within pain, right? And the first thing for me that had came to mind is a woman going through labor only to see the beauty in the child that has been birthed, right? We know that she has to go through some sort of pain. Every woman has a different threshold. No matter what, though, there's a pain that's associated with giving birth. Another aspect of this can be that of an emotional or mental pain. When you're studying for something like a master's degree or that PhD, I mean, you get so deep into the books, your head starts hurting. And I got to be honest, I used to watch my wife study and have her context cards, and she's got 15 books on this side, the laptop open on that side. And I can literally see the vein popping out her head because she would be in pain trying to get this work down. But there's a definite beauty in receiving that degree at the end, right? There's a reward.
Yep.
But then we have you, Miss Kristle, right? And your beauty within pain derives, from a different place where, honestly, many might not see beauty in that position. And so my first question to you, Miss Kristle, is: can you talk to the people about the pain that you faced and how the beauty came about?
Well, Norman, back in 2020, actually all began in 2019 when my mother fell ill. However, we all had the hopes of, or was given the hopes that she was getting better. It started out with something small and, as such as a little cough, and then it grew into something we didn't know about, or, whereas the doctors didn't know. They was just trying and, giving her medicine, antibiotics, the oxygen, or what have you, going back and forth to the doctors. But in the midst of all of that, she kept going. She kept living. She kept laughing. She kept being herself. And on the outside, you saw all, we knew she wasn't perfect, well,
right?
But had hopes that she was getting well because that's what was given to us. But inside, she had all the pain inside. She was never one where, she wanted a pity party or someone to, nurse her or take care of her, because she was that person to everyone else.
Right.
So when it hit us big, because it hit us unexpectedly.
Right.
When we were told she was going to survive and get back up and she was getting better. So when I got that phone call that, on September 8th, from my dad that, she was in the hospital and he couldn't stay, but I forced my way there. I said, I'm going anyway. So when in my book, I wrote that, when I got to the hospital at, a little after 9, and they told me that, she was getting a procedure done or what have you, and she recovered, she's doing well, Norman, that's when that pain hit me, because what I saw, it wasn't what I was told.
Right.
And that's when my mother came out, and she is on a ventilator.
Wow.
She's non-responsive. She's just there, right? So when I saw that, that's when I was hit with the biggest storm ever that I could have ever imagined, knowing that, at that moment, I'm not going to beat this. That's it for me, the doctor's not being straight with you. The nurse is not talking to you. And at that moment, everybody was using COVID as an excuse. When a doctor, he tells you, hey Siri, stop. He tells you that you can't, I'm not going to talk to you. You got to talk to my medical staff. That's when the pain hit me.
Right.
When the nurse says, oh, honey, I'll be out in a moment to explain everything to you, but you never see the nurses. That's when the pain hit me. But the storm never stopped, even after the next day when I had to call to check on her.
Right. And
that was the last phone call. That's when the hurricane got bigger. So at that time, I did not know how I was going to overcome that pain. And at that time, that's when I did not know I was going to survive life at all. My mother, my best friend, the person, who plays the big role in your life, in my life, that role stopped. Everything stopped. I felt like at that moment. But it wasn't until almost a year later that I realized my mother had a story to tell. It's just that she wasn't here to tell it, right?
Right.
So that pain that I will never forget, I will say the heart is still tender. It may bleed sometimes, but not as much as it did.
Right.
Healing takes time, so it's still in the healing process. But I knew I had to take that pain in order to understand how to blossom. When someone tells you and gives you hopes that this special person in your life is getting better, surviving, but prior to that, you were told by the doctors, it's nothing I can do.
Right.
My hands are tied. So then when you put trust in another doctor who promises you that they are the doctor, they are the one who can do it, who can fix it, and then say, she's getting better. You know, it's nothing but high hopes, right? That's what anybody who's going through anything.
Right, absolutely.
When you have someone who tells you right in your face that this is getting better. You're almost there. Trust me. And then a month later, it's done, it's gone. What happened?
Right.
And then everybody disappears. It's no straight answers. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just mute. That hurts.
You know, your story, your mother's story, right? It is unique, even though, you know, from the outside looking in, somebody might be listening right now and say, people go through this all the time and people die, but that was your mother. That was your relationship. You see what I'm saying? So it was unique to you and your family because you didn't go through it alone. You had your sister, your dad, brothers, uncle, whoever is around, your husband, your own child, right? You went through that, and it's important for people to know that it's one of the reasons why I never say, well, I know what you're going through. Because the truth of the matter is, if we lost our mothers on the same day, the same way, we can only identify truly in the loss, not necessarily the pain, because my relationship with my mother is different than yours with yours, right? So for those out there listening right now, please do your best that if you're around someone that has lost a loved one, and maybe you have as well, try your best to refrain from saying, I know how you feel, because it's almost a slap in the face to a degree, right? Because you really don't know how I feel. And I just want you to know that, in that situation, no one can know what you were feeling and truly know what you were going through. Even your dad, even your sister, right? Each one of you had a unique relationship with that special woman. Call mom, call my wife, right? So Miss Do, right? I'm gonna call her Miss Do. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Amen. Miss Do. That's right. I'm gonna call her Miss Do.
Yes.
Amen. So so I'm thinking, right? And as you're speaking, and so everyone out there, please know I have the book. The book is an awesome read. Again, please, I'm going to big it up at the end, but the beauty within pain. And I need to talk about it. In chapter 1, you wrote this, and I'm going to read it in everyone's hearing. Life is a sensitive circle. One half is precious, but known as beauty, and the other half is pain, known as a storm. Both sides come with a journey we must walk through and understand what that purpose is. And so for me, the word sensitive really stuck out to me. You see, because I talked about the uniqueness in the relationship, but the truth is God made each of us as an individualized person. No matter if you have a fraternal twin, a identical twin, whatever it is, you are still unique. And so when you wrote the word life is a sensitive circle, that's what got me to thinking about that. And also, obviously, if you're listening to Building Bridges, I'm going to bring the word of God out. And so I want to tie a couple of things together in that statement, but also two scriptures. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And that's out of Psalm 139. And then in First Peter, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people. And so when I read those scriptures and I look back at what you wrote, can you tie those together for us about this sensitive circle?
So, everybody's life to me is different. And we all have, no one's here by accident. No one's here by accident. We all have a purpose. We all have a purpose to live. Some of us don't even know what the purpose is. I didn't know what the life, what my life was. And I didn't understand my mother's purpose. And she was always busy. She was always a busybody. However, in her busy days, she knew how to manage her time.
Wow.
With her job, her family, her church, her friends, or just her having her me time. She knew how to do it. Whereas there's some that just can't. And
right.
then they go crazy and, like, oh, I don't know where I was. I'm losing my mind. I'm stressed out, what have you. She rarely ever used the word stressed. I don't think I've heard her say stressed. She never said depressed. If she was any of those things, she kept it inside. And to look at Psalms 139:14, when after I lost her, I sat back and I reflected on her life in my life, not her entire life, because she's my mother, she's before me, right? I reflected on her life within my life and all that I saw her do, all that we talked about, all that people said about her. And she lived life fearfully. She was not, she feared no one but the Lord. She did what he told her to do. That's why she worked. Like, she didn't even speak retirement. My mom was 62. And I don't think she really bothered to retire.
Right.
She was going to work until God said, sit down.
I know that's right. So many people I know like that.
She put love before her. She put loving others before herself most days. And she was not afraid to offer a hand. She was not afraid to love. She was not afraid to pray for a person. She was not afraid to live.
Right.
And God made her to do the things that she was capable of doing. God made her to fulfill her purpose in her life. He created her to be that roof. He created her to live and to love and to laugh without fear. Even her own enemies, if she had any, and that allowed me to understand my purpose in the moment of when I wrote The Beauty Within Pain.
Right.
But prior to that, to pick up a reef, the circle of life, the circle of love, the circle that Jesus wore around his head.
Right.
And decorate it and fulfill it with love that represented her. And I had to do it without fear. I was never one who I always talked about, starting a reef business, and, my sister would talk about starting her business. And my sister was more bolder than I was when it came to stuff like that. But for me, it was, I'm not doing that. I'm not asking nobody for support or any of that.
Right.
But I had to put my fear aside. Normally, I had to put my fears aside to write this book, meaning I had to relive the events.
Right. Absolutely.
And in that moment, that's when God said, I gave it to you, and you have to fulfill it.
That's good right there.
I had to understand later, after I wrote The Beauty Within Pain, I had to understand that this life is given to us. And in this life, it's not going to be easy. It's sensitive because we are sensitive. We're human.
That's right.
Every event that we experience, whether it's pain or whether it's joy, it's sensitive because it means something. Regardless if the next door neighbor understands it or not, it means something. And we have to walk the journey of both to understand what God put in us.
Yeah.
What God has for us. We're chosen for our own purpose and our own opportunities that we're called to.
Absolutely.
So my mother had a purpose to live in her life. Yes, she had experienced some pain, let me tell you. But her pain did not outweigh her beauty of life.
Amen. I know that's right. You know, even as you're speaking, right, I'm thinking about the word pain itself, and the pain, the word, you know, you can use it as a noun, you can use it as a verb, and as a noun, it speaks to actually feeling the physical and the suffering that someone goes through, and I hear that even in your speech, even when you rehash and relive, like you said, you had to go through some discomfort to write the book. But then I also can see the verb side, because the verb side means inflicting mental or physical pain. Now, while you may not have put your hands on anyone or even yourself, but even in the process of going through some of that, there's some mental things going on when we rehash. You know, my dad passed away in 2010, and I got to be honest with you, it took a long time for me to really mourn. You know, I was dealing with so much other things going on in my life at the time, and so it took a while. But when it hit, you know, I started beating myself up. I started inflicting my own mental, because I went into that mindset of, I wish I could have, would have, right? That I wish I would have had just one more conversation with him. I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have did that, you know, and nothing was further from the truth as far as why he passed, or that I did something wrong or he did something wrong. It was time. God made that decision. But I definitely inflicted some of my own mental pain on myself. And so as I hear you speak about this, I can tell, you know, that you had some days and some nights that maybe, you know, you wanted to quit, but there was no quit in you. You just kept pushing, because the purpose that God placed on you in this book had to be written. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm blown away. And by the way, to my audience out there, this is the second time that I'm sitting with this awesome young lady. The first time was on video. You can go check that out. But I'm always blown away by your speech, by your transparency. And if we could see her face right now, I'm not saying she's shedding a tear, but you can see and you can feel and you can visualize the pain that she went through. And so I want us to really think about purchasing this book, because it is a great read and it will help you. It can help you in different ways, and it doesn't have to be the same loss that she went through, but just the loss itself. You can replace certain things as far as the feeling and how she pressed through to see what her purpose was. Again, I'm just blown away. With that being said, I think this is a great moment for us to take a quick break. I'm gonna go pay some bills. Y'all know what that is. Give me about 30 seconds. I'm gonna let all of that settle in your spirit, and we'll be right back. All right, everyone, we're back with Kristle Baylor-Johnson, author of The Beauty Within Pain. And we just talked a little bit, about one of the chapters in the book. And we're going to move forward because there's another piece in here. You know, at your book signing, Kristle, I had the opportunity to meet your father, right? I learned who he was, you know, and I walked over to him and I shook his hand and we talked a little bit. Turns out we have more than just you in common, right? We live in the same community. Didn't even know it, but we live in the same community, and so we had an opportunity to talk a little bit. So in chapter 4, A Couple's Love, this is what you wrote. Our parents were inseparable, not always perfect, but beautiful enough for one another to fly as one. Oh my gosh, that blew me away. You know, because I just recently celebrated my 29th wedding anniversary, as a matter of fact, last week. And your parents were married for 39 years, if I read correctly, right?
Yes.
All right, 39 years. See, y'all think I'm playing. I got this book. I ain't playing. So it immediately took me to Genesis 2:44. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So the fact that you said that it wasn't always perfect, but beautiful enough for them to fly as one, that was awesome. That was a great piece that you put in there. It hit home. There's a word that I love to use that I just learned 5 years ago was a real word, and the word is stick-to-itiveness. And what it means is tenacity, to have determination. And even though you pointed out that it wasn't always perfect, they stuck in there and they kept it going. They held on to one another. And I just need you to talk to me a little bit about why it is you put that chapter and why you wrote that.
My parents they met in high school, but they always knew each other. So where they're from, you know, it's everybody knows a lot of people. Everybody know each other. My dad he could be a bit of a handful. And we always wonder, like, how can a lady such as our mother be able to stick by and handle someone, you know, just like our father? He was
Hold up. Wait a minute. Hold on. This is a time for me. I have to say thank you to my wife, because I say the same thing quite often, even now. Like, how and why? I know she loves me, but geez, how did she stick with me this long? All right, go ahead.
But it's beautiful. It was beautiful. It was funny. It was hilarious. They had good times. They had bad times. And A Couple's Love, you know, when you saw them, you would not have thought that they would have this marriage, whereas it could be filled with fun and love and, you know, joy or whatnot. But all of that had to be created from some, you know, rough edges. No marriage is perfect.
Right.
And my mother and my father, they've been through a lot. But one thing about my mother is she was not afraid to stand up for her marriage. She was not afraid to pray or stand up for her husband or up against her husband. If she had to, she would let him know. And she was not afraid to ask God to help her mold this man if that was her place. And she did. Through their roughest storms, she got on her knees and she prayed.
I know that's right.
You know, the arguments, the fights, the gossiping in the public streets, none of that knocked her down.
Right.
But him as a man, which I believe my grandfather, who passed away in 2019, my dad's dad, he was a good man. He was a wonderful man. And I honestly believe he had a warm heart. He had a warm heart. And that warm heart, it trickles down. But it takes a man to pick it up.
Right.
To accept what's trickling, right? And my dad, he picked it up. He picked up that spark. He picked up that trickle. He never left my mom. Through all the mess, he never left my mom.
Right.
Even when she got fed up, he found a way to ask God for forgiveness, to love more, to learn to be patient, because he was not patient. She was his patience. She was his prayer warrior. He was her rock, her king. Their love story, you know, what is a love story without
some drama, right?
Right. And rocks trembling.
Yes.
You know, and every rock can weigh a different pound. Every, storm can come at different speeds. So not every marriage is going to experience the same, right?
Right.
But every marriage to me has pain and beauty. When my mother learned how to pray for our dad, his strength got stronger, his heart got warmer. He changed. Prayer changes things.
Come on now.
Prayer changes people. It might not happen overnight. And she would say that. She told all of us, me and my sisters and my dad, it'll be morning, noon, and night. She'll tell us all the time, even on the telephone, be patient.
Right.
And I think that came from her being patient with her husband over the course of the years.
Right. Okay.
She had to be patient with him. The more she prayed, she might not have saw the change overnight. The more she prayed, she might not have saw the walls turning,
right.
so smoothly. But she knew her prayers were being answered when this man was a deacon.
Right.
He might not have stayed in that position. He drifted away from church for a little bit.
Right.
But she knew her prayers were answered when he came on back home to the church. And he would ask her, what does this mean? Or what that mean?
Right. Absolutely.
And she would explain it to him. That wisdom, that knowledge, and that understanding is sunk down in him. Her prayers were being answered. And whatever was said, about their marriage in the streets or what have you, my mom never walked with her head held down.
Right.
Because she then understood, God got me. The prayer and the beauty of her grace. She had patience with this man, I wrote.
Right.
And God gave them another chance. He knew he needed this queen, but he also knew she needed this king. He put them two together. She didn't just go out there and meet somebody. He put them two together. God put them two together for a reason. And it lasts 39 years.
I mean, that's a blessing all in itself right there, 39 years,
Yes. And he didn't, when I watched my parents come from, both of their parents were amazing. They had all that they needed. But I did watch them struggle some.
Right.
But I also watched them build.
Mm-hmm.
I watched their dreams come true together. They prospered together. They might not have been, the Apple iPhone makers or,
right.
software creators or what have you. But they prospered together. God made them rich in their own way, meaning in heart.
Right.
And he let them two do this together. She was true to her king. She did not pretend. Norma, she did not pretend. She was not quick to anger. When he was quick to anger, she was quick to come through with a touch that only a graceful touch.
Right.
It just smoothed the waters. Their love, their marriage, it prospered out of darkness, and God was able to shine light so that whoever will ask will understand the meaning behind a couple's love.
Right.
It's not always easy. It's not always easy. But if you remain in prayer and accept the grace and mercy of the Lord,
absolutely. And it's so important too, for those of us that are listening and to you right now and talking about prayer just in general, it's so important. The Bible says that the prayer of the righteous availeth much, right? And every situation won't be the same. Every marriage definitely is not going to be the same. But we stand in prayer for one another. We stand in proxy for the things that we need God to move on our behalf, right? And so although one might not be living a certain way, right, or one might have strayed away, the fact that the other one knows how to pray, knows how to speak to the Lord on their behalf, it's amazing how God moves and responds to our prayer. And so I'm blessed by that chapter. I'm blessed by the way you speak about your parents and their love. Again, the transparency, right? It's not about faking it and say, oh, my parents were the greatest thing and this and this. No, we had problems, and they had issues. But you know what? Love conquers all, right? Yeah. So that's beautiful.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think about, there's another part that I'm going to bring up in a second, but even when I think about that chapter about your parents and the fact that it says one for one another to fly as one. It's so important, right? Because like you said, they may have had some ups, some downs, because that's what a marriage truly is. But at the end of the day, they were one.
They were
right? They were one. They were one. And it doesn't mean that, there's not going to be some things that come in between or whatever it is, but they never let go of each other. They stayed together. That word I said, stick-to-itiveness. They were determined to stay together. They used tenacity, and maybe one was using tenacity more than the other at one point in time, and then the other. But however you look at it, those words, tenacity, determination, right? They kept it going. So whether she had it one minute and he had it the next, whatever it was, it worked. And so we can look back at your parents as an example of how, marriage can be, because if anyone says that there's no issues, and man, I got a question now. Like, wait a minute, you telling me y'all both like grits the same way? Y'all both like the door closed halfway? You both want the AC on and one doesn't want the window open? I find that hard. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So there's always something.
Yeah.
But as we come down here, I just thank you so much, for agreeing to have this conversation with me. And I know it's helping somebody out there right now, because someone is thinking about their parents right now. Somebody is thinking about the situation you spoke about, your parents, and their own lives and their own situation, because they may be going through a rocky moment right now. And that woman, that man that's listening right now, they're trying to figure out, well, maybe I'm the one that needs to have the tenacity right now. Maybe I'm the one that needs to show that determination to fight and stick with this thing, right? So it's going to help people in a different way.
Yeah.
As you move closer now toward the end of the book, not the end, but I noticed that right at the end of the chapters, right, you made it so that people can write in the book and answer a question or two and put their own thoughts down to how they can identify with the words that you're writing. And in chapter 11, titled Her Golden Wings, there is a question at the end of the chapter. And it says, are you fearless to show the beauty that was hidden behind your pain? And I read that and I was like, wow, you're talking about somebody not being afraid to be vulnerable for a moment, or maybe for the continuation of their lifetime, right? Because depending on what the issue was or what the concern was, how long that is. So can you speak to why you put that particular question in there?
So I've never been a person to talk to the public.
Okay. Well, that's about to change.
I see.
Look, wait. You can't have too many more book signings and not talk.
I've never been. I've been more. I'm kind of, to myself, private. I talk to my, family, my friends, but to be open, that wasn't me. So, mind you, Dews Blossom Garden, the creation of reefs and the beauty within pain. I didn't know that was coming. I did not know this was coming. I did not know this was my purpose. I did not know this was going to prosper.
Right.
So when I began making my reefs and calling them by name and giving them, a description to explain their title, it opened up.
Okay.
It opened up. So I had to, and I was encouraged by many. I was encouraged by many friends and family. I was encouraged by many. never didn't really want to do it, but gave it a shot, so I did it.
Right.
And when I did it, it was, I slowly opened up by telling the meaning behind Dew's Blossom Garden. So the more I told the story, the more the expressions I saw on people's faces was like, oh my God.
Right.
Someone said, I love that. You have strength. You are strong. Keep doing what you're doing, what have you. But I didn't do it I started, it was my therapy. It was
Right.
for me to find a way to stay connected to my mom, to continue to help me to remember what she taught me, how she lived, how she loved, or what have you. And as I'm going out and I'm meeting people, strangers, and from different states, different counties, or what have you, that's when I realized you cannot be afraid
Right.
of the gift, Kristle, that was given to you.
I like that. And it's true. Right.
And
the cool thing is that I can say that I was one of those people now.
yeah, like you cannot.
Yeah.
And I asked God, I said, you gave me this vision. What do you want me to do with it? And it was 10 years ago, 11 years ago, you said you was going to write a book. That's what you told your mother.
And here we are.
And here we are. Birth from the Reefs, Dew's Blossom Garden, the beauty within pain.
That is awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so when I began to write that book, that's when I received the confirmation that I was more fearless than I thought I was.
Right. That fear and that reluctantness, it comes from a place of not understanding and not knowing. And God already know, I tell people all the time, right? God does not call people that are equipped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He calls people and then he equips them to do what it is that he wants them to do. Right. And sometimes we could be in that place where it's like, well, that's not for me, or that's not, I don't know what's happening. But then it takes something in our lives, whether it's a tragedy or whether it's a something, right? And it kind of shakes us to our core, right? And then all of a sudden in that shaking, you get to see and get to hear from God, where he was always talking to you about it, because the writer that is in you has always been there. That's not new. It might be new to the pages that we're looking at, but the writer in you has always been there. It's just a question of when you realized it and when you let go and let God truly, right? And to the people that are home listening, and again, I know sometimes it's hard. That's why I said in the beginning that to some, they might not see the beauty within pain when you're talking about a parent, a loved one passing away, but that might have been the thing that gave you the thrust to move to the next level. You see what I'm saying? And so we don't, and I'm talking about us, you and I, right? Because I'm very respectful and cognizant that not everyone that listens to my show follows Christ, and I understand that, and I'm respectful to them. But for us, the ones that do, we know in the back of our minds, it doesn't take away the pain, but we understand that God does not make mistakes.
Yes.
Right. And so we push and we live through it. We write down, we talk about this sensitive circle, like you wrote in chapter 1, right? We move on to the next thing. We start to remember chapter 4 when you wrote about your parents' love, the couple's love, right? We go even deeper and we get to her golden wings, and that question that you're asking the audience, the people in the world that one day will read this book. Are you fearless to show the beauty that was hidden behind your pain? And so I thank you for that. I know the audience,
because we can't be
come on.
Some of us are still afraid. And Norman, like I said, to be in that space back at the hospital, and there was no warning, no nothing.
Right.
I was scared for a long time. I mean, a long time. So everybody, like I said, that sensitive circle, one side is beauty, one side is pain.
Yes. But
everybody's beauty is different. Everybody's pain is different. Everybody's pain is different, regardless of what the situation is, regardless of what the loss is, who the loss is. No matter what, it's different.
Right.
But we all have a story to tell. And behind that pain is beauty that is waiting to blossom.
Yes. Come on. I love it.
Behind that pain, there's beauty waiting to blossom. And that beauty, that story, whereas we all have a story to tell, it's gonna bless somebody else. And I didn't write this book to like, this is not a tell-all type of book. This is
right.
Like if that was that kind of book, I could have said a whole lot more. But that's not this kind of book.
Right.
This book is to help someone to face the fear of mountain, to get the strength to push that fear of mountain aside and allow all that beauty that's behind you to shift forward and blossom.
Yes.
So that all the butterflies and the cardinals and all of that can just bloom from it. And say, here I am. I have a journey to walk, a life to live, and I'm going to do it in beauty. And there are times, don't get me wrong, there are times where I'll shift back. I will end up, I'll fall back just a little bit, not a whole lot.
Right.
And I'll ball up, I'll cry.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the process.
Absolutely.
It's part of the process, but I still talk to God, and I still ask him. And I'll still tell him, you told me that you heard my prayers, you seen my tears, you are restoring me. God, restore me.
100%.
100%.
100%.
My mom, it took me and my sister a very, very, very long time for us to say this. She won. W-O-N, she won.
Right. No, I hear you.
And I know she approved because she told me to write the book. I just ain't know what she meant. She said, write that book. And then, a few weeks ago, it was about 3-4 weeks ago, I had a dream that I was at my son's game, and it was just crowds of people. My mom always attended my son's games, and it was crowds of people. The crowd split in half. My mom was standing right there, and she smiled at me.
Wow.
She smiled at me, Norman. When I woke up, I said, thank you. Thank you, God, for allowing me to see my mother's face. Thank you, Mom, for smiling, because I know you approved and I know you're good. You won.
Right.
We have to be fearless to endure the pain to blossom. There's more. There's so much more for us to do. It's so much more for us to live for. It's so much. And what I learned through this whole process of going through the pain and blossoming from my pain is I'm not afraid to talk to God, have conversations with Him, and I'm definitely not afraid to ask Him to give me the desires of my heart.
Right. And we can't be.
We can't be.
We can't be. We have to be specific with God. We have to tell Him what we want, tell Him what we need. Right. We have to do that. We have to be specific. Mm-hmm. And He answers those prayers. You know, we talked about we talked about your mother praying for your father.
Yes.
The truth be told is most of us aren't even here unless somebody was praying for us. You know, because I can sit back right now and remember my life before Christ. Mm-hmm. And I know of my mama and my grandma and my whoever and pastors and whoever that came across in my lifetime that knew who God was and had an intimate relationship with Him, could go to Him on my behalf. I know that's why I'm still alive. So you're right. There is more.
There is so much more. And I felt as though, you know, all the seeds that my mother sowed, she had to dig deep. She had to get dirty. She had to be patient for that seed to prosper, for that ground to tremble, so that some beauty can grow up, right?
Right.
Mama had so much beauty behind her pain. Her beauty outweighed her pain. She showed it while she was living here. That's why a lot of people would say, I didn't know your mom was... Some people would say, I did not know your mom was sick. When I saw her, she looked good.
Right.
That was the beauty that outshone the pain.
Right.
And it's just that she wasn't. She technically, Norma, she told the story because she lived it.
Absolutely.
I just wrote some of it for those that did not know her.
There you go. And I appreciate that because I did not know Mama. I did not know Miss Du.
Right. I just wrote what God told me to write for those that did not know her, who did not live with her or live beside her or grew up with her to understand her. So that's what I did. Her beauty outweighing her pain, her being fearless to endure the pain to blossom, those seeds she sowed allowed for me, my sister, to do the same.
Right.
In the book, I talked about how my sister got on the stage. She was fearless to show her beauty from her pain. And my briefs, my book, it just goes to show that I was fearless to show the beauty from my pain.
Absolutely.
And I encourage everyone else, get the book.
Come on. Get the
book. Beauty Within Pain. Go to my website, dewsblossomgarden.com. Order your book.
Absolutely. And that information, it'll be in the description of the podcast for you to get. There'll be a link there where you can go directly to her website. You can go to her Instagram, her Facebook, follow her, see what's going on with Dews Blossom, and then also with Miss Kristle. I'm gonna call her Miss Kristle from now on. That's what it is. Miss Du and Miss Kristle. How you doing? That's yes. Right. That's what it's gonna be. And listen, I appreciate you again. I appreciate your transparency. I love having conversations with you and then also with people like you as well, because it is important that people understand that they are not alone in whatever it is that they're going through in their life. And so I'm a firm believer. I'm like you, the same thing. I don't do this for money. I don't do this for show. I don't do it for popularity. I love what I do. I love to be able to speak to people genuinely and still talk about the word of God at the same time, because people are hurting in this world, and they need Christ. And so to be able to talk about him in a real life situation and how he brings us through, it's important for me. It's important for Building Bridges. The people that follow me and, oh my gosh, they support me. They understand that there will never be a conversation, whether it's on video, whether I make it to TV, whatever it is, that will always have Jesus Christ as the center point in the conversation. And I pray that something was said that inspired you all tonight, today, whenever you're listening, that motivated you and at least provoked you in thought.
Yes.
And by the way, Building Bridges has moved into its next phase, which is life coaching. So life coaching with Norm is now available. So you can go on my website, book your free consultation today, buildingbridges520.com. And don't forget to check the links in the description so that you can find all of Kristle's website and social media information as well. I love you all. Miss Kristle, I appreciate you so much for coming on my platform and having the fearlessness to endure your pain to blossom. I pray for you and your family, your husband, your son, that the Lord just keeps blessing you over and over and over again. Y'all keep building those bridges. God bless.
Thank you, Norman. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Always, always, always. All right, now we'll see you at the next appointed time.
Take care.